What is going on, boys and girls? It is your boy Temporary Citizen. I'm back at Temp Sits HQ, and today I'm on a Kawasaki ZX14. Let's jump on. Oh, ZX14. Now this is a big boy bike. It does not handle like the SV, that is for sure. So heavy over at the front. Alright, so it is your boy Temporary Citizen on a ZX14R. God, that's quick. Holy dooly. So this belongs to a friend of mine. It's a 2009 ZX14R. Probably never going to have to leave first gear, to be honest. And coming off the Brat review, this thing is a little bit bigger. This thing is indeed a little bit bigger than an ST250. I'm not sure why they bother putting gears in this, because you really only need first. And I'm just trying to get used to that weird heavy handling. So this is probably a little bit more stylish version of the Hayabusa. I think it came out as a 1400 just because the Busa was a 1300, and Kawasaki went, yeah, alright, we can beat that. And because of that, you have this absolute monstrosity of a machine. Whoop. You don't have to ride the gear up as much on this, and you know what? Jeez, this thing handles heavy, and it is very warm already. Likely because I'm sitting on what is a small car engine and not a motorcycle. So you know, it's got the full clip-ons. You're very much bent over. It feels like you're just squatting on this bike. Mind you, ZX14, I still don't really fit on it that well. Like, it's a much bigger bike, but I wouldn't say that I feel like I fit on this any better than I do my 650. Oh, you can see how small the 650 looks in comparison. If I line our forks up, I guess they're similar in length. I don't know, you just look how much higher the 650 is. And I'm riding that clutch a little bit. Sorry about that to any of the purists. God, yeah, it is heavy to turn. But as soon as you just give it a slight touch of throttle, whooshka, it's golfed. And it feels different, like in how smooth its power is. Like, it's just, it feels like you're going into warp, whereas the 650, like the V-twin 650, you wind it out and it's like, alright, like this is, you know, this is quick, it's something I'm used to, whereas this is like being in a spaceship. It's just whoop. Yeah, it is it Feels so heavy to lean. I think that probably partially comes from me not being used to clip-ins, but yeah, it's as far as the rest of the obvious stuff, I mean, the comfort on it is pretty nice, you know. The seat feels spongy and comfy. The brakes feel really good, you know, no complaints about the brakes. Obviously you'd want a lot of stopping power if you're putting out the ridiculous amount of power that this thing is, but they limit it to 300 k's an hour or something. It's crazy. But god, the indicators on the SV look nice. But yeah, it's very good. Now there's a few Top Gun stickers on here. We were watching Top Gun at work last night. I mean, we were doing our job at work watching Top Gun at work last night, and this is covered in the Top Gun stickers, which is cool. God, it's just like you're in first gear, you're doing 60 k's, and you've got like none of the revs used, you know. Like this thing hits what power band at like 8,000-9,000, and you're already losing your license eons before that, which is some of the dilemma that I have always said about big bikes. Like if you're not taking them to a track, you get a 1000cc, you get a H2, you get a ZX14, you're like, man, this thing really wants to be used very fast in a straight line, and they're often not. How do I go? Being 6'7", see, I still struggle to get my knees under those tank indents. So everyone's always like, why don't you get a bigger bike? And it's like, well, this is as big as they come in sports bikes, sort of. Obviously it's different on dirt bikes and stuff, and you know what, dirt bikes actually fit pretty well. Dirt bikes I fit well. Sports bikes, even at their biggest, they're not big enough. I doth proclaim. Like, I'll put a picture up of what I look like on this bike right now, but I still look, I'd assume I still look a bit too big for me bloody 1400cc sport bike. So we're going to take it through a few corners and stuff, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting seeing how this goes, because I reckon the SV might be a bit easier and a bit more nimble through some bends, whereas this is a bit more of a drag car kind of situation. Obviously this thing would absolutely flog the SV in a straight line, and in the capable hands of a capable rider, I'm sure this would flog the SV on a track. But I reckon if you're an average Joe, you may struggle to go quicker on this round of track than on the SV. Like, obviously this would win in the straights, hands down, no doubt about it. But I don't know, I haven't taken a bike to a track, so I really couldn't tell you. Might turn out that this thing's very easy to go around a long sweeping bend on a raised track. I do not know, but it is very heavy and not keen to lean. Really gotta yeah, see that thing, it's so slow and cumbersome to move. And granted, I'm not used to riding this, alright, so I'm sure a seasoned ZX14R rider, we're coming off the SV, it is very hard. Mind you, you get a straight line and this thing's nuts, right? But yeah, that's you really do have to throw the body around just to get a bit of lean, whereas corners like that on a more upright naked bike, a bit more skittish, but very much more nimble. This really shouldn't surprise anyone, but for some reason it's surprising me. I don't know, it's been a while since I've been on a big bike like this absolute weapon of a rocket ship. But yeah, see, the funny thing is, right, obviously, I mean, you're not allowed to in Australia, but obviously a ZX14 not the best bike for a beginner, right? But that being said, if you weren't, like, it's probably not the speed of this thing that is the issue for new riders, because it actually takes off very smoothly as long as you're not chopping the throttle. But cornering is probably where you're likely to come unstuck for a newbie, not the copious amounts of power, because it's the heavy cornering and the trusting yourself to look through the corner, which I'm actually struggling a little bit with because I'm not used to at the moment. Yeah, but not the cornucopia of speed that this thing has. God, I'm so wanky. I could also see you being just as likely to crash that SV as a new rider, even though the engine is less than half the size, both in capacity and cylinders. It handles more nimbly, but it's a little bit more skittish. So it's like, you know, it'd be like if you were in a Miata or an 86, I guess. No, 86, but if you're in a Miata versus an SS Commodore, it's like one of them has way more power than the other, but they're both equally easy to wreck for their own different reasons. Yeah, not a perfect analogy by any measure, but it is an analogy. It would be so hard not to pull up next to a Lambo on one of these and absolutely chop him. Thing is like, this looks like a race bike, whereas the SV looks a little bit more like, if you weren't into bikes you wouldn't really know what was going on with an SV. And then its stock setup, sorry that I keep comparing it to the SV, but the SV is just sitting there right there in front of me, so it's very easy, and that's what I've been riding lately. But you know, it is definitely a whole different kettle of fish. Yeah, like you sit there and like all of this, like it's I don't really know how to explain it, but like at slower speeds it felt like you were turning the wheel as opposed to counter steering, whereas that's less the case on the SV because it's so light and nimble. Like I think I'm thrown off because the wheels just here, but the front of the bike's all the way over there, so it's a bit funky. Plays with your head a bit. So the sound is like a when you get onto it. It's interesting to hear him say that he really loves the sound on the SV jumping on it. Yeah, cool bike. Cool bike. Look, if you... So, I haven't been on a booster before. I've been on the CB1300, but that was a naked, so it was a little bit of a different experience. If you're thinking about buying one of these, you already know sort of what you're getting in for. But if you haven't been on one, I'd absolutely recommend taking one for a spin, because it is very different to a 1000cc Super Sport. Like, it's not just a bigger engined Super Sport. It is actually like a 600 to 1000, very similar experience. 1000 to a 1400, different bikes entirely. So absolutely jump on one if you haven't, because it's yeah, it's real wacky. See, and this cornering at a higher speed is actually, like, it gets easier as you go quicker, which is bizarre. But yeah, what else? Comfort seems, I don't know, pretty super sporty. It's probably not as aggressive as a Super Sport. It's definitely no upright handlebars. That is for sure. Yeah, brakes feel brilliant. The brakes are really good on this, as one might expect. But if you're looking at bombing through the hills often, maybe not the bike for you. Maybe this is more freeway warrior than hills weapon. It just coasts. See, I could see these being a real good, like, touring sport bike, which is, I guess, what they're intended for, funnily enough. But you know, like, it can handle corners, but you don't want to be hitting corners all the time. But it's just like so bulk, steady, solid. It's just, I don't know, maybe you'd want some risers if you were touring on it. See, I can't even get under the thing, and my elbows are like resting up on my knees, so it's a real weird one trying to be tucked in. Like, it doesn't work at all. Now, this is my ponderings on the ZX14R. It's an interesting bike. Sorry that I didn't get to really unwind, but it's not my bike, and I don't want to lose my license or get it impounded. If you want to watch people go really fast in a straight line, then there's plenty of those videos online. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I've been Tempsits. You've been gorgeous. Tempsits out. Peace.